Barcelona have just started the season with 4 points from games against Getafe and Cadiz. Both games did see Barca dominate the ball and create enough chances to at least have secured the win. But a bigger problem did appear, which Xavi needs to address. Barcelona just cannot, for the life of them, control games. This idea actually came from No New Thing on Twitter, so make sure to check out his content. I'll link it in the description. It's incredible. But before we delve into this issue, it's only fair to understand who Xavi was as a player to see who he is as a manager. We see him as a Spanish maestro, entirely focused on control and passing. However, to truly understand him, we need to examine the evidence. Xavi's focus was always on space. He consistently sought out space and used it, regardless of the pattern of play. Despite operating in Pep's system, where meticulous and detailed focused movement were key, Xavi's primary goal was to find space. Due to his exceptional football IQ, many of the passes that we consider impossible today were not as challenging in his mind. In his own words, he said, quote, "I calculate the distances. Why does my teammate come 2 meters to me? Stay 30 meters away. I'm the happiest person in the world when I can see that there are movements because it increases passing options." In another quote, he expressed similar sentiments. "Think quickly, look for spaces. That's what I do, look for spaces. All day, I'm always looking. All day, every day. Here? No. There? No. People who haven't played don't always realize how difficult that is. Space, space, space. I see the space and pass." Xavi has never been a player solely associated, in his mind, with control. In the 2008-09 sextuple season with Pep, he managed a remarkable 30 assists and 10 goals, while Iniesta, a player considered more attacking, achieved fewer. The lesson remains the same. Xavi was a space enthusiast, leveraging his innate La Pausa and exploiting space to a degree unparalleled in football history. Fast forwarding 8 years as the club's manager, Xavi's philosophy hasn't changed substantially. In an interview from September of the previous year, he stated, quote, "I've learned a lot from Guardiola and Enrique. I consider them among the best in the world. I prefer to control, but if the rival gives you space, you have to take advantage. We did it with Guardiola too, remember? Henry's goal in the 6-2 against Madrid? Xavi doesn't intend for his team to display patience in build-up without purpose. In a Guardiola team, the focus is on breaking down the opponent through meticulous movement and patterns. With Xavi's Barcelona, control is only maintained until the opponent establishes structure. Once the opponent's defensive line advances, the emphasis shifts to exploiting space. This once again clarifies Xavi's heavy reliance on long balls and switching play. In the 4-0 match against Real Valladolid last season, Pedri managed to complete 15 long balls, the most in a single La Liga game that season. Shifting play, inducing movement, and discovering space formed the core of Xavi's Barcelona philosophy. All that said, what makes this a problem? If Barca managed to win La Liga with a considerable lead and dominate against big teams like Real Madrid, why isn't this sustainable? The answer lies in a single word. The word that seems to bug us all the time: control. Barcelona lacks control. The top teams in Europe possess the special ability to control the pace of games, slowing them down or accelerating as needed. Barca fails to achieve this, and it's unlikely to be a feature under Xavi's management, as his entire philosophy doesn't revolve around it. Xavi's Barcelona excels at controlling space. They comprehend which zones to cover and when to overflow, aiming to establish superiority in certain areas. Xavi always seeks an extra player in a zone for this very reason. Much like Conte's Chelsea and Tottenham, along with Mourinho's famous 2012 Real Madrid side, Xavi's team revels in controlling space. However, Barca struggles to dominate space. Currently, Barca retains possession in a manner that ensures exploitation of any openings or regions. The priority is exploiting these through long balls, dribbles, or other means. Yet the best clubs in Europe, including Brighton and Manchester City, put it eloquently, move the opposition. The goal isn't to immediately score, but to manipulate the opposition's position in such a way that when you do go for them, you're in optimal conditions to do so. It's deliberate and intentional. Regarding the significance of this matter, it's crucial to acknowledge our disadvantage based on our recent European history. As demonstrated in matches against Bayern and United last season, we matched their intensity and counter-attacking threat and were arguably superior player for player. Instead of asserting dominance, we chose to press and rely on our physical attributes over technical finesse. Xavi recognizes that Barcelona possessed enough star power to contend in Europe, with players like Pedri and Xavi, masters of technique and pausa. However, Xavi's European strategy didn't align with this at all. Seeking to match opponents and increase Barca's image, he failed to fully exploit the technical attributes of Pedri, Xavi, Balde, and even at the time, Busquets. When pondering this Barca team, it brings to mind Thomas Muller's quote from 2021, when Xavi was initially appointed and Barca got dumped out of the Champions League. Quote, "I don't think they can cope with that intensity. Technically, they have it all, and they have some really good players. There's no question about that. But we can deliver this intensity both in possession and out of possession. I don't think they can cope with the intensity in top-level football." Xavi was well aware of this fact, and in an effort to change it, he took 2 steps forward but 1 back. In terms of pressing stats, Barca leads in Europe and has executed more counter-presses in the opposition half than any other team in the Liga. This can only be compared to Bielsa's leads due to sheer intensity, and just like Bielsa's leads, the same problem again happened. Pep once said that players should walk with the ball and run like thieves without it. And any Barcelona fan would tell you Barca tends to do both consistently. The recent finishing problems could be attributed to this dynamic. Bringing no new things perspective into the picture, there are 2 types of finishers, instinctive and systematic. Players like Lewandowski are instinctive, as strikers, while players like Ferran Torres are systematic. In a team like City with clear patterns and movements, Ferran scored a lot of goals. However, at a club like Barca, where chances aren't guaranteed and Xavi grants the freedom to create individual chances, the overall contribution is diminished. Considering all this, how can Barcelona improve? And will they ever under Xavi? The signs thus far point in the opposite direction. Pep famously stated in an interview that 15 passes are necessary from defense to attack to induce movement from the opposition. By maintaining continuous movement, the opposition shifts, a free player emerges, and coordinated movement from the rival is restricted. Presently, Barca's attacks seem more driven by individuality rather than well-structured pattern movement. If this isn't rectified, much of the original Barca identity from the past will temporarily erode, as the emphasis on being a space-oriented team will persist. This is the big problem with Xavi, and everything that has happened so far points to the direction that this will continue. And if you do want to see a similar video to this one, make sure to check out my reaction to the Cadiz game, where a lot of the same problems did exist. And thank you, and as ever, Visca el Barça.